Good morning and welcome to Not Mental Health Matters. It's a brand new day, a brand new year. We're into 2025, and today is the first Sunday of the year. Today we will be discussing setting 2025 intentions, and joining me today is Mairo Ahmadu.
Hello,
I'm
everyone.
Sonia Harte. I'm Sonia Harte. I'm a licensed spiritual practitioner with Centers for Spiritual Living in Colorado and Barbados. Good morning, Mairo. How are you? Sorry, let me pronounce your name
I'm-
correctly. Mairo. Good morning, Mairo.
Yes,
How are you?
I am doing well, Sonia. Thank you so much. Yes, it takes a couple of tries to kind of get the mirror your boat, but
Mairo. Yeah,
all good. How are you this morning?
I am good. I am happy to be here. Starting the year right with getting into mental health wellness, not just for myself, but for all out there who are watching us at the moment. Mira, I want you to
Awesome.
tell our audience a bit about yourself. How did you get into the journey of being a mental health therapist?
Okay, I will share a little bit about that. I like to introduce myself as more of a multifaceted person. I am a creative, I'm a researcher, I'm a mental health therapist. Just to keep my title short for this episode, I was just like, I'm going to go with mental health therapist just to keep it simple. But one thing that really fooled me into becoming a therapist, particularly, is really kind of creating spaces and facilitating conversations for mental health, particularly for the Black, Indigenous, people of color community. And so, really, just also highlighting that, knowing that I didn't grow up with those conversations, I think that was one of the planting seeds of where I'm at today. So, yeah, glad to be here.
Awesome, awesome. Welcome to the show. As I said earlier, I'm Sonia Harte, licensed spiritual practitioner, and I deal with matters of the soul, matters of the spirit, also matters pertaining to mental well-being. Today's topic is setting 2025 intention. I know a lot of people would have, at the end of the year, decide, okay, I want to do some things differently. And note that we're using the word intention rather than resolution because we're still making this resolution. I remember a girlfriend sending me a text message saying, oh, this is my resolution for this year. And I said, wow, what do we really need to resolve here? Because I no longer make resolutions and make intentions. I do affirmations. Tell me a bit more about intentions and the difference between intentions and resolutions. I know that's a big chunk to jump into. So, what
Yeah.
is the difference between resolutions and intentions?
I think resolutions, honestly, to me, it kind of lands more about like setting like goals, but they're not really, goals that you kind of uh see through. I grew up with also like learning about resolutions, and every year, you make resolution. One of the big ones for me was actually like this year I'm gonna work out and be healthy and go to the gym, and then 2 weeks into the year, you're like, okay, no, this is not working out. And then you kind of just either it's easier to just kind of like either backpedal to the norm of whatever the case may be. But I think like with intention specifically, there's almost like this sense of anchoring, and there's a purpose and there's an alignment with how you choose to move throughout the time or throughout the thing you're setting an intention for. Especially this year, like there was intention was actually one of the words on my vision board, where I was like, everything that I am setting, there's like a questioning on how does this align with the purpose, with my purpose? How does this like serve as a strong foundation in how I move forward this year? So is it building habits? Is it being intentional with like you want to wake up every morning at 5:30 in the morning? Like and then the meaning behind why you're waking up at 5:30 in the morning every day.
Mhm.
So I think resolutions are more also like big picture of just like I would like to, you know, wake up earlier, but there isn't like a set time, there isn't a set goal, there isn't a set why about why you're doing what you're doing. For me, though, that's like really how it lands.
Okay. So there are many things that I intend to do for this year. And I tend to think of making intentions as a plan. You did mention there's a plan. And I see that for myself as I intend to do all these things. But I still have to resolve within myself that these are the things that I really want to do. I have to come to a place where I've done my reflection of last year. I've looked back and analyzed, okay, this worked, this did not work, this is how I want my life to look and feel going forward into a new year. So these are the things that I want to not do anymore. And these are the things that I intend to do from here on. And as a person who works with the mind, it is not always easy, even for myself, keep my intentions to myself, Today I'm going to pull my driver's permit out and going to have it reviewed. This is my intention. But then somewhere along the line, I'm not honoring that intention to myself. How does that impact a person when they set goals and do not follow through on those goals? We make intentions, but we do not follow through on them. How does that impact on my mental state when I don't follow through?
I think there are like two ways in which that could be looked at. One is, you set an intention. I think like setting intentions is definitely just not enough of just like, I intend to do this. And that's the end of that. I wanted to say like last year I did drink the Atomic Habit Kool-Aid, as I call it, the book by James Clear. And it was really about like stacking habits to like back up your intention. So one of the big intentions for me last year was like, I really wanted to be more healthy. I really wanted to go to the gym at least every week. Okay, like that was a big goal to even like just say, okay, I want to go to the gym 5 days a week. That was my intention. But I think one of the difference between like not going through with it and going through with it for me was that, yes, I set an intention of 5 days a week, but also that was a core foundation for me that I just wanted to go to the gym. It didn't matter if it was 2 days a week, or it was 5. It was just like I needed to step my feet into there and like just get my workout done. And there are some weeks where, it was 1 day. There are some weeks it was 5. But the core intention of getting healthy was really there, backed up with the habit of I need to go to the gym minimum 1 day a week, maximum 5. And so there are weeks where also I didn't go to the gym, but I think that's where self-compassion comes in as a therapist, where I'm just like, you should be kind to yourself with that, right? And really honor where you're at in that moment. Just because, you went off track, or you didn't do something that was intentional that week, or you didn't really back up that habit, doesn't mean like that's the end of it. Like really that intention of getting healthy too was that, yes, you miss a week, but like there's always tomorrow, or there's always next week to like we come back to that. But I think there was like that strong foundation of I want to be healthy and I want to go to the gym at least once a week. And that was really a helping factor in terms of like propelling that.
Okay, so I'm hearing you say that you made the intention, but you didn't follow through every day. You did it some days and you didn't do some days. So what happens psychologically when you don't honor, your commitment to self?
Yeah.
Because
There was like
we make intentions, we make resolutions,
Mm-hmm.
January is fine. You may get some things done in January. And then
Yeah.
somewhere along the way, the distractions in life happen. I
Mm.
want to wake up every morning at 5 o'clock and do my devotions, then get into my exercise, so that by 7 o'clock I am doing my housework, keeping my space tidy and all of that. But then a friend
Mm-hmm.
calls me in between 5 and 7 and distracts me with something else. How do I stay on track with my personal goals for my life
Mm-hmm.
without allowing the distractions around me to pull me away from what I'm doing? Do I write out every day a timetable of, okay, this time I'm doing this, and turn my phone off so that I don't have interruptions? Because
Mm-hmm.
for me personally, intentions have to go with self-respect,
Yeah.
self-value, really valuing yourself to the extent
Mm-hmm.
where you shut some people out, setting boundaries so that you don't call me in between my time for myself, which is between 5 and 7 when I'm going to take care of things I need to take care of. You don't call me in that space unless it is a real emergency. And even then, I may not be the person to call if you have an emergency.
Right.
Yeah, what I really want to get out of this discussion today is how can people move beyond just making that mental intention and
Mm-hmm.
actually forming new habits for themselves that put those intentions into actual practice. How do
Mm-hmm.
we do?
So I would say like my first, maybe like my first go-to is that so even in setting intentions, sometimes we set very big intentions without like having so maybe the first is like setting a manageable intention that is backed up with habits that will come easily. I know sometimes when we set like a very big intention and then we see the habits that kind of follow, it's almost like this very daunting plan to follow through. But just really like keeping it simple and like really making sure that the habits you're building to kind of propel those intentions that you have are can you hear me? I just kind of went out and
Yeah, that's okay.
okay, so there's also a lot of flexibility that needs to happen. So I know you were mentioning kind of like, setting boundaries with like your time or time blocking. People know themselves best. If you know that, having that call from 5 to 7 is going to be distracting or is going to deviate you from actually getting work like your thing done, then yes, absolutely set boundaries. If you're more of a flexible person where you're like, okay, like 5 to 7, I will answer this call, but it's okay to maybe shift whatever it was I was trying to do to the evening or because like time allows it. So there's a lot of auditing of like how your life functions already and how you can also add those habits in addition to like the flexibility that your life sort of um, people time block. And so if something doesn't happen in a block, it's like almost it derails the whole day, right? So I think there's like some self-compassion, some flexibility that could be allowed there where it's you don't get this thing done today doesn't mean it can't get done tomorrow or just because it can't get done maybe later in the day. So being able to be flexible, moving things around is also like very key. But I think like just even auditing your life to know what works. If you know that you're not a super flexible person, then yes, working on those boundaries to make sure that you are to the T on certain things might be helpful at that point.
I'm going to ask this question because it has been floating around in my head for a little bit
Yeah.
about procrastination, because I hear you talk about flexibility, and if something can't be done today, we put it off for tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes. You know, what about doing things in the now? Should we always make now a priority. When
Mm,
something has to be done, do it now rather than, oh, I'll get to that tomorrow.
mhm.
And I'll get to that tomorrow. Isn't that procrastination? And is procrastination a mental health challenge for some of us? You know, is that on the mental health spectrum?
Mm.
Delaying and delaying because you have a fear going on, or maybe just a little bit of laziness.
Yeah, I think like it's a very when you describe procrastination like that, I'm like absolutely it's almost like a slippery slope of like, you take one day and then you take seven. And like keeping yourself accountable to that. What I'll say about that is if you know you're a person who procrastinates, then it's definitely like, coming back to that boundary conversation of like how do you build more what works for you and what doesn't work for you, knowing to be more disciplined. I think, as you said in an earlier comment, or even like self respect and like really building that for yourself to know that, yes, one day off might mean 7 days for me. And I accept that and I want to work on that, right? So, yeah, just really honoring also where you're at and being honest with that really helps in terms of like determining um, what that might look like in terms of like being flexible and being self-compassionate with yourself and intentions that you set.
The word flexible, I like that a lot. And I also use the word pivot.
Mm,
Sometimes things don't go according to how we intend them to be. And for me, I like to say, let me pivot. Let me become a ballerina for the day, and pivot a little bit. There's another word, I think it is, I don't know the word off the top of my head, so let me call the wrong word. But I think we need to be able to balance and go forward and backward and don't fall flat on our face, even
mhm,
with our intentions. And yes, intentions should have some wiggle room. However, I think if you have too much wiggle room in your intention,
mhm.
nothing will happen. It is a mindset
Yeah.
reform that we have to look at when we're setting our intentions. At least that's my opinion.
Mhm,
That going into any new era, we have to be able to one pivot and have that mindset reformation going on, because I think that that's where real change happens. That's where we
mhm,
set new habits when we're able to change our mind. And by that, I don't mean become whimsical about life, but to change our way of thinking so that we can change our way of being in the world. And I know even for myself as a spiritual practitioner, that is not always easy. That is a challenge because of the habits that you have formed, and habits settle in your subconscious mind and they become who you are pretty much.
mhm.
That's your mental equivalent will always show up in your life.
Yeah.
So asking someone to make intentions, especially intentions that line up with resolutions, New Year resolutions, the things that I did last year, I'm not going to do anymore. Would journaling help? Would
Mhm,
writing out the things that happened last year and the things that you would like to shift from,
mm,
writing those things out, you get a piece of paper and say, okay, last year I spent more money than I should. This year I'm going to go and have a very stringent budget. And those things that I bought, like the new pair of shoes I didn't need, I won't be buying those. I will be getting my nails done. I'm going to go natural. Um, would you say that this would help in terms of keeping the intentions that you make to yourself going forward into 2025?
mm.
Changing your habits by writing out the things that didn't work and how you're going to change those things. And every day going back to that sheet that you decide, okay, I'm going to make a list. And you go back to that sheet and you say, okay, this is where I want to be. Every day you say, this is where I want to be. This is how I want my life to be. Would that work?
That's a very challenging question because I feel like there are people, or I think there are people who that might work for. And then, like, as you're even talking, I was like, oh, that definitely does not sound like me. Once I write something, it's like I forget about it. It's like,
Okay, understand.
we'll come back to that and like, keep looking at it. I think I got into vision boarding last year as well, where I kind of was like, okay, this is fun. This is having a picture. I saved it as my screensaver on my phone. I look at it every day or every other minute of the day. So it's like clearly there about like the decisions I'm making, are these the facets that are it's covering, right? Something I also really worked on was, again, I'm very logic in nature. So I decided to form this, it's a 5-part question decision framework of everything I do. So asking myself these 5 questions, it can kind of stem from, is it this, how do I feel in this moment? Am I doing this because for me, or am I doing this for others? And just kind of like really kind of like helping me dial back the intention behind even doing something. So yeah, while for some people, having a board, looking at it every day, it's wonderful if it works for you. But then there are also other ways where, is it having an accountability partner? Is it building your community to kind of support you in that way, being let it know that this is what you actually want to accomplish this year. These are your intentions for the year. And having somebody be like, oh, you set that intention. Like, do you feel like you're moving intentionally right now? Like, I also call my friends out on that. If they do let me know what they're trying to work on. And also, like, with the maybe vision boarding, if that's your thing, like having a picture, looking at that, having a decision framework. I think it really varies from person to person, but also I'm curious to know what works for you more because you kind of brought up the journal conversation. I don't know if Sonia can hear me.
Okay, the internet is a little unstable. I heard you talk about your vision board, and I think vision boards work well. But one of my spiritual practices is visioning. And in visioning, what we do is we start off by going into prayer, making that intention. And then we go to our higher self, that part of ourselves we call God, and we ask 5 questions, sometimes 6 questions. But the
Mm,
first question is always, what is Spirit's highest vision for myself in whatever situation you want to create? And the second question is, what must I release? The third is, what must I embrace for this to happen, this vision to unfold? And
mm,
I'm trying to say it off the top of my head. But I know the last question, one of the very last questions is, what else is there? But what you're doing is actually going into a meditative state and
mm,
asking God to show you the way forward, to give
mm,
you guidance on what is mine to do in this moment. What should I release? What should I embrace?
mm,
And really connecting to source. I know that there are a lot of teachers who will tell us to do visualization, to do the visioning, but I'm a firm believer that whatever we do, God must be a part of it. And that is God based on your understanding and not anyone else's understanding, because we have so many different spiritual practices out there, or not even spiritual practices. We use that word so wrongly sometimes. But religious practices out there, we have so many, and they all teach about God in whatever name, whatever form. But at the end of the day, it is all one system, one God, one people. And I personally believe that visioning helps a lot, because you of yourself are not making those decisions. You are allowing the source within you, that power, that all-knowing spirit, to give you that guidance. It's okay, Sonia, I want you, this is my highest vision for you. And my highest vision for you is to be that place where people come for spiritual guidance and support. This is my vision for you. And this is how this will unfold for you by embracing these practices, the practice of gratitude, the practice of integrity, the practice of sacred service, and of course, sacred selfishness. These are the practices that will help you to achieve this intention of being there for others, being a compassionate listener, being that person who is there for others. That's why I mentioned that, in envisioning and making your intentions, that we still have to bring it back to the source that created all things and all people and all ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you are religiously.
I do connect with that spiritual kind of aspect of, as I mentioned at the start of the episode about like purpose and alignment of like within yourself and like your core. I can definitely see that where there in I grew up Christian, kind of like deviating more from the religious aspect of it to more of the spiritual aspect of it. I always make this connotation about like I'm in this boat with me and my creator. And if the boat sinks, we only have each other to kind of blame for it. But literally like driving this boat, salvation is personal in the Christian faith, as I say. But like there is this boat, and I am our creator. We have to be aligned. There has to be a purpose. There has to be a driving. Like we're both rowing. We're going somewhere, and I can't have like a different purpose from what my creator has. We have to almost be in sync to be able to row in the same direction to really get to the things that are meant to unfold for me. So in that regards, like I talk about purpose and alignment. And it's more of an intimate, deep relationship than just kind of like, okay, yes, I not
I think I just lost Mairo, but she will be back. But in the meantime, I want to expand a bit more on visioning, and this was first introduced by Dr. Michael Beckwith of Agape. And It is also part of Sanctuaries for Spiritual Living, spiritual practice, where we have teams that gather to vision for whatever we want to bring into being. And I would like to suggest that the audience and anyone listening to this after embrace the art of visioning, embrace that technique of allowing your higher self, God, source, universe, whatever you call the source of your being, that you allow it to give you that guidance, that you find that quiet space and ask, what is mine to do? Why am I here? You know, give me guidance on this. I want to buy a house. Give me guidance on this. I want to start a new career. Give me guidance on this, and ask those questions. One of the things I will do at some point in time is to post the questions on our chat to those persons who are in the chat. So that going forward, we can reach out and ask souls, what is your highest vision for me in 2025? What do you intend for me to be and to do in 2025? How can I show up in the world and be a positive presence in 2025? So that our intentions are not just small intentions about ourselves, but intentions that take the world into a better place, nation by nation. And I believe that we can do it because intentions should, in my opinion, include everyone. We don't live in isolation, so to speak. But how can what I want to do serve all mankind? Not just myself. I have great intentions, but are they selfish intentions? And I think that's where we want to go in 2025. Making intentions that are for humanity, that brings humanity to a better place of being. I know for myself that that's my intention, to show up and to practice my spirituality in a way that touches other people's lives, to be there for people, but most importantly, being there for others, to be there for myself as well. And that's my number one intention for 2025, to be present for Sonia Harte. I'm just waiting for Mairo to pop back in, and she hasn't yet. So, do you have, oh, there she is. Mairo is back.
I am so sorry. I don't know what happened with my internet. It was just like doing its thing and then all of a sudden out.
Yeah, that happens. I've had moments like that too, where the internet just say, okay, I'm going to take one more.
Yeah.
So I was sharing with the viewers that I think it's important to make not just intentions, but to do your visioning and to ask your higher self for guidance going into 2025, and that those visions, those intentions should not be selfish ones. They should include all humanity. How are we going to help this world that we live in? I think that our intentions need to be more broad-based rather than just at the individual level.
Yeah.
But more at a level where all people are included.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. There is just so much, I would say, so much joy in like sharing your intentions with kind of involving community with that, right? So even just how you're moving. And I think one of my intentions this year is really I was actually logged in on YouTube while I was trying to figure out my internet situation, and I heard you saying something about how intention needs to sort of involve like not be selfish, but more of just like, and how does it involve community in that regard? So even if it's like talking to people and really keeping yourself accountable and like also supporting others through their intention, I feel like there's just so much joy when there's more of a collective intention as a group too in moving forward, and like really setting that with different maybe groups in your life, as it also helps just keep yourself accountable, but also the group and other people accountable in how they set their own intentions.
I like that. I like that. That's very important because even as individuals, we're not independent. We rely on each other for so many things in life. I sometimes think of myself as being superwoman and realize, no, I'm not. I need to reach out to someone to assist me with stuff. Yeah, I don't live in the world alone. I can't do everything on my own. There are people that we need to reach out to. And I think that with that being said, we really need to make our intentions so that they are inclusive rather than exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
So that even when we talk about Black mental health, how does that look? Are we excluding others in terms of being mentally healthy?
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I like to look out at the world and see the world as one organism, how do we make intention for a better world if we continue to isolate ourselves from the others and say, well, Black roses can't grow in the same garden as red roses?
Yeah.
Healing has to take place. And that healing takes place when we make positive intentions for ourselves in terms of bringing others along. Sometimes when I listen to conversations, I get uncomfortable because of my nature, and I am by nature very pastoral in my outlook on life. And for me personally, one of my other intentions is that the world becomes a place that is peaceful, not just for me, but for all people. That's a very lofty goal, I know, but I personally believe it is doable, and it is doable one individual at a time. It's how we look out at the world and decide we're going to show up. Am I going to show up just for Mairo because we look similar, or am I going to show up all people as a pastoral caregiver? Am I going to open a practice and say, well, only this group and not that group? And I'm saying this on this forum live because I want to see the world in a better place. I want to see that there are, wars are stopped. I want everyone to have really great mental health, wellness. And that happens when we all make the intention to be mentally well. And that includes what? Loving yourself no matter what. 2, not allowing others to cross your personal boundaries and define who you are. And 3, put on some blinders sometimes. Put on blinders sometimes. Leave the prejudice behind. There's certain things I don't like about people, but I'm learning to put on blinders and meet them at the level of humanity and not through my own lens. Because if you look out at the world through your own lens, a lot of things are going to seem not too like.
Yeah.
And you become intolerant. And I'm just sharing some of my intentions, yeah? And those are some of my intentions that the world become a better place because I showed up and I said, you know what?
Mm.
This is where I live. This is my planet. I want better for it. So I'm going to take the task of making good intentions, of asking Spirit within me to give me the boldness, that fearlessness that it takes to show up in the world and say, we can do better as a human level. We can do a whole lot. So for all of those persons who are setting intentions and resolutions, I want to encourage you to look out at the world through a different pair of lenses. Because if we continue in the vein that we're going to destroy ourselves, we're going to destroy the planet, we're going to destroy the home of the future generations to come. And I know that we can do a whole lot better. With the intentions that let our intentions be global, let our intentions be universal rather than individual. You know, think of others when you're making your 2025 intention. What are your thoughts on that?
I was gonna say, I really resonate with having not just setting like that like intention for ourselves, but like more on a larger scale. In therapy, there's something I enjoy doing with like one-on-one clients, and it's the art of reflecting things that I kind of want to see, and also like how that sends like an invitation to someone else to kind of step into that with me. So if it's like, you know, even showing yourself self-compassion, I think when you show yourself self-compassion enough, for instance, like there is self-compassion that is automatically reflected to other people, because you know that with yourself, you take yourself with so much grace. And then you offering grace to others comes a little bit more easier the more you do it for yourself. So in a way, you're kind of reflecting that to others. Same thing with values. You know, when people say, oh, you know, it's really valuable to me for people to be honest, and then you're honest all the time, or you try or you strive to be honest all the time, it's more of like, okay, people are like, okay, you know what, I will be honest with you on this, you know. So it kind of creates that ripple effect to other people around you. While it's not the same definition of maybe, you know, showing up in a particular way, but there's almost that curiosity invitation as well to like think about these things, think about your own intention and how you're showing up intentionally. And I think like as you do it as a person, it almost creates this ripple effect in your community and the people around you to also kind of think about it this way. There are a lot of friends of mine, you know, when I do something and they're like, oh, why did you do it that way? And I say, oh, I'm being intentional about it. And then they ask me, oh, like, I want to be intentional about things that I do too. So even just like sparking that conversation of like, what does intention mean to you? You know, and just kind of really leaning into that invitation that you've set, and people walking or stepping into it is like just so much powerful too in creating that ripple effects across different groups that we belong to.
I agree with you. Yeah, it comes down to setting that intention, what we intend to do. And intentions need not be broad based and for a specific year and period, but every time you go to do something, make an intention, let it be intentional. But also in doing that, while making yourself happy, ask the question, is this thing that I intend to do going to bring harm to anyone? And I don't mean discomfort. You know, you may want to do something like go partying, and your mother's going to get upset because she don't want you to go partying. Not that kind of upset. But is it going to bring harm? Going to stop someone from having a good meal? Is it going to stop someone from having a job
Having a good
tomorrow?
day.
Yeah. You know, not, you know, because sometimes the things we do some people are not going to like it, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about bringing real harm to someone else. And I'm going to bring this into the conversation because sometimes we make ourselves happy, but fail to realize that our happiness is from a very selfish place, and therefore it is going to cause harm. It is like when I decide that I'm going to go and buy something exorbitant with the family resources. And then my daughters can't go to school because I took all of the funds from the family account and bought a fur coat. I live in Barbados, don't need a fur coat. But I said, it's pretty, I want it, I buy it. So now my daughter can't go to school because I bought a fur coat. That kind of harm. You know, it's like when you get your paycheck and you say, I think I can win the lottery this weekend. And you take every cent and you say, okay, lottery ticket. Family can't get food, the mortgage is in arrears because you didn't win. It is that kind of harm. But we press pause and we think of our action when we make intention. Is this good? Is this going to be beneficial to me and others? Is it going to cause harm? Because in making ourselves happy, we still have to look back. Who will this harm?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the I'm talking about the big one.
Yeah. I think maybe tying that back to what I mentioned, like a decision framework and like really asking yourself questions like in that moment is also like it could be really helpful in terms of like determining, is this actually worth doing? There's a lot of, I feel like in our world today, there is more doing and less reasoning behind what we're doing. And I see a lot of just even maybe with clients or just people, I just see like almost careless movement in like emotional and kind of physical ways, and people just do things because sometimes I think I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, in Canada. It's a very similar to North American culture, very individualistic, where it's all about like you and getting your things done. But you know, growing up in Nigeria, there's like a lot of consider what that ripple effect will have either on your family or your community, or, you know, so growing up, there's always this like, you have to think about other people around you. It's not just you as a person. But even if you're making a decision or setting an intention, it's like, how does it affect the people, you know, that are either closely associated with that intention, or either what is the harm, as you said, it will bring to those people. So I've always like had that view on like decisions I make, but then I think there's sometimes where that boundary, it's like you do need to disappoint some people for the greater good, right? But it's also how much are you willing to disappoint people? Like, is it to the point where it causes harm, or is it to the point where it's like, okay, you know, in 5 months, you know, it's there's a greater alignment, or there's a greater purpose for why you're doing what you're doing. So I think deciphering that as a person is really important, where you're like, okay, I know that this harm, and being able to even communicate that and be like, this is the intention I set for myself, and I know this is the greater purpose it has for people. Like, it's so much helpful than to do something and like it comes up malicious, and then, you know, it like affects the relationship or like affects the bigger, just, yeah. Also communicate, just communicate that.
I agree. And that brought to my impulsive behavior, because some people are very impulsive. I have a friend who would say to me, oh, you don't make decisions, because I'm not impulsive. And if I decide or I have the thought to do something, and by the time I work through it, you know, you start to work through it, you start to think all around, and I say, oh, this isn't a good decision. And I back away from it. Or you don't make decisions. And I've had to explain, it isn't that I don't make decisions. I may seem to be procrastinating, but I'm weighing things in the back. I'm seeking guidance from this, and I'm allowing spirit to guide me. And I don't like to be impulsive because when do things on impulse, is it wrong? You know, I allow spirit to say, well,
Yeah.
like this, not that. Stay away from this person, go with this person. And I find when I listen inwardly, when I do that, oh, life is so easy for me. You know, other than and I know that impulsive behavior is also a mental health challenge. There's something going on, something deeper going on when you're impulsive.
Yeah,
You know,
I think it's also like the urgency culture in our world today also doesn't really help that, you know? Like even hearing you talk about like making decisions or, you know, replying to that email like right off the bat or that text message. I also get like, why don't you reply to your text messages very quickly? And I'm like, I want to have like a well thought answer because you're not here in person to see all my physicalness and all the nuanced expressions that are not here. So I might say K, I might type a K because I'm busy, but you might see it as dismissive. So, you know, like if I actually took the time to write okay, OKAY with an exclamation, it's also a different response. So, you know, like even with that and just being like, I need a moment and that is okay. You don't need to like respond to something quick or, you know, yeah, I really blame urgency culture with that. That's kind of emerging around the world.
I think life should be lived intentionally, you know, that you should always be in that state of connecting to source, asking those questions. And that for me is being intentional, where I have a spiritual CEO who I can go to and ask for questions. I have a spiritual CFO who I can go to and get my finances sorted out. And I would like this to be a takeaway for people, but to always turn to your higher self, no matter what your religious foundation is. You turn to your higher self, your higher power, and allow that higher power to guide you when you're making your intention. There's nothing wrong with asking for guidance. There's nothing wrong with saying, is this a good intention, not just for me, but for all people? How am I showing up in the world as Sonia Harte? Am I showing up as just an individual, or am I showing up as part of a global community? And in as much as we like to think that we're individual, yes, we are on one hand, and on another hand, we're all interconnected. And our intentions going forward, and I'm not repeating myself here, should be collective. Should be collective. How are we helping each other with our intentions? This is a selfish one. I know I have some selfish ones, and I'm going to see them through because it's about honoring and respecting myself. So those
I kind of saw Sonia as. Oh, sorry, Sonia. I was just like, the phrase that came to my mind as you're saying that was like honoring your different identities that you occupy as a person.
And I like that because I do have different identities, you know, mother, the predator, we all do have different identities. But what I really want people to do, as you said earlier, reflection, journal, script, write things out, paint, do things that help you to connect in a very significant way to your higher self, rather than listening to the logic of other people. Because and this is where individuality comes in. It comes in where you can recognize I am an individual, but yet still I'm part of this big collective. Let me show up as love, agape love. Let me show up for the global community in a way that makes absolute sense, rather than be selfish in my outlook on the world. And I'm going to use this term. It's from Reverend Cynthia James. It's called sacred selfishness. Practice that as often as you need so that you can help more people. because there are some people who will come along for the journey
Mm.
just to take advantage of your compassion and your kindness. Make intentions that serve humanity, not one individual, but serve all of humanity. And for those people who are distractions in your life, for me, my intention, and a girlfriend said this to me recently, you can't show up for everyone. Show up for those people who will make it.
Mm.
And that's one of my other intentions, to show up for myself because I'm going to make it. Can't be present for everyone else.
Mm. It's a lot of work to show to sometimes to also, show up for yourself and
So,
others also.
show up for yourself. Yeah, those people who need your help will come along on the path, and they'll recognize that some encounters will be brief. It's like that story of the alligator taking someone across the river. Some relationships are going to be very brief because in some cases the alligator will eat you as soon as you jump on its back. In some cases it may take you midstream. In some cases it'll take you all the way across. You have to understand and value your relationships in 2025. Those that are going to be long term and those that are going to be short term, and but we have to be wise in the choices that we make when we make our intention.
Mhm.
And I want to wrap up by saying that the intentions that we make should be life affirming, so that one, we are mentally stable, and the people we encounter as a result of our being mentally stable for ourselves can also be mentally stable. We don't cause harm.
Mm.
Any last words, Mairo?
I think maybe my last words would be around just like remember purpose and alignment. I think I've been dabbling a little bit into somatic work and just like feeling like feeling your whole body resonate with your purpose and alignment as well. Like there's so much our bodies tell us during our intentions or what we do or how we move through the world. And if you can tap into that, I recommend really tapping into also all your body systems and what it is telling you as you move through 2025, because our bodies speak and we need to listen. And sometimes when we don't listen, what does it do? It actually just ends up shutting down completely. So really just tapping into that as much as possible. And again, if you can find alignment with purpose, with values, with all the things, spiritually. I know Sonia really talked a lot about spiritualness and really also kind of tapping into that. So tapping into all the facets of your life and really aligning yourself is really important as you move. So yeah, those will be my last little
Thank
words.
you, Mairo. And
Yeah.
we have a comment from Kenneth Reddick II. Keep purpose alive in 2025. And I would like to end on that note. Let's keep our purpose alive. Let's stay true to our intentions. And remember, pivot. Don't be impulsive. And above all things, do not procrastinate, but think things through thoroughly. Don't procrastinate. Just think things through thoroughly. And wherever necessary, reach out for support from those around you, like myself, Miro, and other persons who are part of the Black mental health team. We're here to give you that guidance and that support. And with that, I would like to thank all of our viewers around the world, those who were present with us and those who will watch later. I would like to thank you for your support. And going forward in 2025, there's a lot of wonderful topics coming on stream. So please join us whenever you can, every Saturday morning, 9 or 10 a.m., depending on which region you're in. And it's been a pleasure being here. I wish to also give you special 2025 wishes. Yeah. I'm not going to say Happy New Year because we're 5 days into the new year. But I want you to have an awesome welcome 2025. And remember, pivot as often as you have to. Think it through. Think it through. There's no need to rush through life. It is absolutely a wonderful life. No need to rush through it.
Mm.
So have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.